My name's Chris Evans and I teach history at the University of Glamorgan. And the question I want to ask is, what has Wales got to do with the Atlantic slave system or the slave trade? On the face of it, not a lot. After all, we don't know of a single slave voyage that left the Welsh harbour. Bristol and Liverpool are close nearby and they were major slave imports, of course, and no doubt some Welsh merchants, some Welsh seafarers operated out of there, but they weren't really decisive. But what happens if we stop looking at Welsh people and ask about Welsh things? Then a different picture emerges. How do you get slaves, for instance? Well, they don't come for free, you've got to buy them. You've got to buy them from merchants on the coast of Africa who have very specific tastes. They want particular goods. One of the goods that they want is copper, either raw or made into artefacts, that are made of brass, an alloy of copper. That's in high demand in Africa. And in the mid-18th century, there's only one place in Europe you really went for copper, and that's Swansea in South Wales. The Swansea copper trade churns out tons and tons of copper that is exported to Africa in artefacts that are explicitly made for the buying of slaves. And who are the people who are investing in the Swansea copper industry? Well, surprise, surprise, many of them come from Bristol. And surprise, surprise, many of them involved in the slave trade. It's a loop. But once you've got your slaves, what do you do with them? Well, of course, you take them across the Atlantic. You ship them to the Caribbean or to the British colonies in North America where they're going to make sugar or they're going to grow tobacco. But for them to do that, they've got to be kept alive. They've got to be fed and they've got to be clothed. One of the things they were clothed in was a coarse woolen fabric called Negro cloth. And this is something that's made in a variety of places in northwest Europe. And one of the most important centres for its production is Wales, or more specifically Mid Wales, a band of territory that crosses the country from Montgomeryshire to Merionethshire. Now, this is a very harsh, unforgiving environment. It's wet, it's upland, it's cold, and there are tenant farmers there and small labourers, smallholders, who are eking out a very impoverished living. One of the ways they keep themselves from beggary is to produce cloth during the long winter months. They spin the yarn, they weave it up, they sell it to transatlantic merchants who transport it off to Jamaica, off to Barbados, where it will be used for slave uniforms. That's one of the ironies. Some of the most brutally exploited people of the 18th century, slaves in the British Caribbean, were kept alive by the efforts of people in Mid Wales who were themselves staving off the poorhouse through their efforts at making woolen cloth. So, if we stop looking at Welsh people and start looking at Welsh things, a whole bigger picture starts to emerge.